Welcome to Mitchell Levy Presents, where I dive into the essential elements of clarity and credibility. Hosted by global credibility expert Mitchell Levy, today's episode offers invaluable insights to make you think and act more credibly. Join us as we explore living your values, boosting your credibility, and leading purposefully. Hi, Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert, and I am so glad that you're here to enjoy the excitement that I have when I interview a really cool leader on their values. Today we have Boo. And Boo, you could introduce all of you if you want. He's an amazing human. We're working with him on a number of different areas. And so, Boo, who are you?
It's a good question, isn't it? In terms of who are you now or who you want to be, and that journey is always underway. So, and I think that's really important for a person to understand that who you are, who you think you are, and who you want to be are two very different things. But if we were to define who am I in terms of my journey so far, uh, I'm just a really curious, purpose-driven person, and I connected with that when I was 5 by accident, I think. Well, to me, it felt like an accident, but maybe the universe had a bigger plan. And for me, at 5, I was in a city called Ipswich in Australia, which is inland, hot, dry place where there's an air base. And on this particular day, I was at an air show, and I didn't really have anything, interest in airplanes at the time. But I was sitting on the grass, beautiful hot summer's day in Australia, getting sunburned as you did back in the late 70s. And just watching these airplanes, these enormous machines, pointy noses, glistening canopies, all pristinely washed for the air show, and looking in the cockpit and seeing these incredible, what looked like Star Wars figures, really to me, and then to see them flying in the noise. And I think I had this visceral experience where there was an airplane in front of me, the heat of the jet fuel as it came off the engines, and then looking overhead and this fighter jet that you could almost touch coming over the top, and not hearing anything and thinking that's odd because I've been watching these all day and they're really noisy. But airplanes, it's not the speed of sound, but relative to the speed of light, you can see something before you hear it. And seconds later, the sound of the jet flew over, and I burst into tears, and I was elated, and I still have the memory vividly in my mind. And I think there I was instilled with this belief, and the belief was, my destiny was to become a fighter pilot. And 17 years later, that's exactly what happened. Then the universe being a very interesting place, after I had that career for 11 years, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called ankylosing spondylitis, which is a form of kind of chronic arthritis. It has all sorts of weird stuff that it does, and I'll save the details. But the bottom line is, it's not compatible with being a fighter pilot, so I had to kind of do something else. So I had a good friend of mine, who I met during my fighter pilot career. I spent 3.5 years living in England with the Royal Air Force, flying over there, and I met, I guess, a soul brother is probably what you would call them, a South African guy who was in the army over there that got married to one of my navigators, Sally, and he and I, found ourselves in a closet under the stairs in 2 pairs of bunny rabbit slippers. At the time, saying, "Hey, look, one day let's start a business together." And so when I had this incident, and my career was over, I just reached out to Tom and I said, "Mate, I can't be in the Air Force anymore. Remember that conversation we had?" And he said, "Under the stairs in the bunny rabbit slippers, about starting a business. Let's do it." And we did. I spent 6 months planning my exit from the Air Force. I was in a ground job at the time. A really unique ground job, actually, as a fighter pilot, a job no fighter pilot ever wanted, which was as an instructor teaching people how to plan massive combat missions. But at the time, what I learned is how to really help massive organizations get highly complex things done. And then Tom moved to Afghanistan first, and I jumped on an airplane, 2 Akubras, 2 pairs of RM Williams, to go and talk to a client about potentially helping them with a job, building the road from Kabul to Kandahar at the time, big American contractor called Louis Birch Group. And we won a $6 million contract, the first contract we'd ever had in business. And that business just flew. It grew massive. It was enormous. Too big for two 30-year-old guys to manage, mid-30s. And we ended up selling it. But learned an awful lot about life, humans, how the world works. It was a real live MBA. I never went to college. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD, which explains a lot. Yeah, the best diagnosis I've ever had was that, because it explained a whole bunch of stuff. Me feeling stupid at school, always being underwater with the academics as a fighter pilot, always struggling and feeling like I could never go to university or college, and I never did. But anyway, so it was a bit more like a practical MBA. And from there, we sold that business. I moved into property development, built a hotel over in Perth, publishing business. Needless to say, I've spent 20 years as an active CEO and an active business founder. So I've had my hands dirty in leadership, both in the military as a fighter pilot from the age of 19. And what's unique about the Air Force is the first thing you learn is how to be a leader, and then you learn your skill of being a pilot, which is the reverse in business. And business generally spends a few days a year maybe in leadership development. Most of that training is highly ineffective. And I spent 13 weeks, as well as having leadership blended into every single day. It was always you're an officer, and the word officer in the military means you're a leader, right? And you're an officer first. So then, again, about 10 years ago, I just randomly ran into a friend of mine, fighter pilot, that was working in this company called Afterburner in Australia. And he had this license for the region. And what Afterburner did was it would take fighter pilots, put them on stage, and show them how the way of working and thinking of a fighter pilot could be translated into business. And it was founded by a gentleman called Jim Murphy, who was an Air National Guard fighter pilot here in the US. And I watched this keynote. And at the time, I was just finished building this hotel. And it was like a cataclysmic event of seeing it was always the midpoint, 11 years as a fighter pilot and 11 years as a business owner, and just watch the two worlds collide. And I thought, gosh, that's interesting stuff. So, and again, the universe, you've got to just run with it sometimes. I said to my friend, I'm like, look, do you want me to help you with this business? And he said, I've actually just made a decision to go back and join the Air Force. Do you want to take it over? And I'm like, oh, okay. It was because I was a bit semi-retired at the time. I was like, well, I'm not sure about that. So I flew to America, met the founder, went to an event in New Orleans, which had 26 pilots. It was VMware at the time, one of the fastest growing tech companies in the US. And they were working with Pat Gelsinger, that obviously went on to be the CEO of Intel. And it was amazing. It blew me away. The impact it had. And the company Afterburner worked with VMware for nearly 8 years, helping them grow. So I took a license, came back to Australia, started on the speaking circuit. I did my first keynote in front of our second biggest bank, the 300 top leaders. And it was dreadful. It was awful. I'd only had 2 weeks to train for it, right? And my brain had atrophied. And what I've learned is sometimes as a business owner and leader, your brain can atrophy. You can get comfortable and just everyone's doing everything kind of for you if you're running a good business. So I spent 2 weeks learning this keynote. I got up on stage. I had an iPad there. And I was so embarrassed in my performance, and I'm at this stage, 40 years of age, 41. And I got off stage and I'm like, you're better than that, dude. Like, that's not what you just did was an embarrassment. But I got down into the audience and they were blown away. They said it was the most amazing keynote I've ever seen. Oh, God, it was incredible what you're talking about there. And what I realized right there was this content is important. The messenger didn't do a great job, but even not a great job for a fighter pilot trained to speak was an adequate job. But the content resonated, and what the content really is it's about being very intentional. It's about creating a really great vision that you believe in, not a vision for the sake of vision. And I think a lot of leaders in big organizations tick the box, the vision box, tick the purpose box, because we've got to have one. That's how we engage our people. But the universe is fickle. If you don't believe in your vision and you don't believe in your purpose, no one else will either. But importantly, and fighter pilots are imbued with this deep sense of purpose and connection, right? Like you want this job in every cell of your body. It's like an NFL player wanting to be in the NFL, a kid who wants to play football or basketball. It's that kind of commitment. And so you know that that kind of commitment actually works. It does. It doesn't matter. You know, I was short sighted, struggling academically, but I shifted people along the way to my will. Even the selection committee, whereas when I was mildly short sighted, which is an absolute red cross in the selection process at the age of 18, my commitment to my destiny was so powerful that I convinced the optometrist to mark me up as as perfectly sighted, because that person didn't want to ruin my career, and that was more important than a mild, very mildly short sighted. And that's the difference between leaders that really drive profound outcomes and impact. What I call being a flawless leader. It's a lot of people are searching for purpose and belief, and it's okay to attach to someone else's and be part of that journey, but you can't really be a leader without belief in what you're leading to. And unfortunately, we use language as leaders like a goal, like a strategic goal. And one of the challenges with words like a goal is we've all played kids sport and we've all scored goals but lost the game. And as a leader, we have this subconscious attachment that it's okay if I get my goals, but I lose the year, if that makes sense. So we very much come at the world from destinations. It's if the destination is to get to mum and dad's for Sunday lunch, you don't just get to the first set of traffic lights, hit the goal, and then give up and don't arrive.
Hey, Boo, I'm gonna interrupt. That's the longest "Who are you" ever. So,
I told you. You asked me. Remember, you said, "Hey, do you want to
I
do 20
did.
to 40 second bites, or do you want to radio?" So, like I said, I'll just keep talking unless someone interrupts.
Well, you were on a good roll, and the content was great. So, but when as part of the "Who are you," tell me about who are you outside of the company as well? Like what's the bigger? And it's Boo. It's actually you use the word Boo because your full name is Christian and last name is Boucousis. Is that
Yeah,
how it's
yeah, it's hard to pronounce. You nailed it, by the way, which is rare. Um, who am I outside the business? I'm not enmeshed. It's how can I have a 45-year journey as a fighter pilot and believe in everything and have that as my job now, which is to be the CEO and owner of Afterburner, the company that brings fighter pilot mindset and ways of working. I, I am the company, and I am the intellectual property, and I am this. I am a fighter pilot. I am a pilot. I am a leader. I bring that same mindset to my family, to my kids. I help develop them to come at the world with the mindset of a leader and a
I'm gonna
mindset of
say yes and ignore that. Married, kids. Tell me a little about that part of your life. Who are you? Who's the big part? Like in terms of who you are and how you show up in the world with your family. Who's that?
yeah. I'm just like everyone else. I love my kids. I make a lot of mistakes. I try and set an example rather than tell them what to do. I think for me, I'm just accidentally super intentional, which drives people crazy because I don't, I'm not. When people waste time, I'm like, what are you actually trying to get to at the end here? Like, I don't sit down and rest and watch TV and relax. I don't have that muscle in my body. I don't like relaxing. I don't like lying on a beach. If I'm lying on a beach, I'm reading a book. But that's my wiring. I mean, that's just ADHD. That's neurodiversity. That's just kind of I've learned that stop feeling bad about that all the time and people always say take a rest, you need to rest up, and I'm like, well, I'll rest when my body quits on, and that's normally when I rest. Like last night I was asleep at 7:30. I was smashed. I've been yeah, I'm freaking curious, man. I just love new stuff and better ways of doing things. Not It just so happens I have a business that does that, but that's who I am. I mean, I I just I've moved to Park City. It's summer. I need a bike. So, I'm massively curious about what's the best e-mountain bike and how do I integrate my kid, Joshua, a 3-year-old boy, into that? And, it's all meshed. And then how does this experience translate into leadership by default? And I think it's important, I appreciate where you're coming from here, Mitchell, absolutely. When you say, who are you outside of what you do? But who I am and what I do is exactly the same thing. That's why it's not work. That's why it's not a business. It's a it's just another avenue to try and hopefully help people. Um, and the beauty of the way in which a fighter pilot thinks, and I never even knew it until 10 years ago. I just took it for granted. Is you can apply it to absolutely anything. You can apply it to a cashier. You know, I'll see a cashier at a coffee shop who's really inefficient, and I just can't help myself and just ask, look, what are you trying to do? Not what are you doing? What are you trying to achieve here? Like, it's taking a while, you know. And they're like they're trying to figure out how to froth the coffee. And so has anyone showed you how to do that? No, they haven't. So to me, I'm like, oh, that's a training failure. Like I walked into a coffee shop with one of my guys at Afterburner. He's a phenomenal guy. He's a CEO. He's a CEO in his own right. He's been out of the Air Force for ages. But we had this coffee shop experience, and we sat down, and it's like, what is it about us? You know, what is it that no matter what situation you're in, you're always looking at it as if to say, how can we do that a little bit better? Now that's infuriating for some people. Don't get me wrong. Like that drives some people crazy. But it is what it is. I mean, I love skiing. I love just getting on a lift that's got a double black that I've never skied a double black before, and just kind of figuring out how to get down it without dying. You know, I love flying airplanes. I'm very private. I don't have a lot of friends. I've just got a very few small group of friends that are extremely high caliber and value additive. As I learn about leadership, I see bad leadership, and I understand that it's just because sometimes people just don't know how to do it properly. I look at the world and the way the world's being led, and I have to turn it off. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to shape the way the world's run. I can only shape the way my family and my villages run. But if I set the example and other people, there's a cadre of really beautiful leaders out there, and incredible human beings that are selfless, right? But there's a lot of lost people too. And the challenge about leadership is often the humility that comes with being a great leader means you lose the ability to scale that greatness. Whereas others who maybe have a more personal, selfish view of leadership are very good at scaling a perception of great leadership. But practically speaking, it's not. So who am I, mate? I'm a human that's brain. I wish it would turn off more than it does. I'm infinitely curious about everything. It drives me crazy. 15 years ago, I said to myself, you just got to practice ignorance. Just shut up and just don't read books. Don't do stuff, because it was driving me crazy with the thoughts, right? But now I have an outlet for it, and now I have.
Dude, no. You have to be you have to be curious. You have to be going out. I love that you thought that. What I wanted to point out for people who are watching and listening is something that you and I are very consistent at, very similar. And it's who you are as a human when you put on your CEO hat, when you put on your trainer hat, when you put on your dad hat, when you put on your husband hat, when you put on your living life hat. It's all the same. Now, I wanted to point that out because those are values of credibility, having the intent and commitment to do the right thing, to be a servant leader, to be authentically you, to be vulnerable, to have congruency between your internal and external integrity. Those are things that you're talking about, but I wanted to point that out to the audience. You talk about that as it's natural. I'm going to say it's natural to you. It is not natural to the world. It's not natural to how people actually operate. And so, what I'd like to ask is, and by the way, this is not an easy question because I'm not sure how I'd answer it either. How is it natural to you?
I think it's natural to me because I wanted something so badly, and what I wanted was quite a good thing, like a moral thing. Like you can't take drugs and be a fighter pilot. It's off the table. The minute you've done that once, you're done. You are doing something that's incredibly risky
Is
and dynamic.
coffee
So
okay?
so you're trained.
Oh, is coffee okay?
Yeah, of course. Well, I got my coffee, so which you kindly let me get before the interview.
It technically is a drug. I thought I'd mention. Yeah.
Mitchell. I wonder what my life would look like if I didn't have that moment as a 5-year-old and I wasn't a fighter pilot. I wonder how my ADHD and my dopamine would have served me. Would I have ended up just a complete waster on every single, illicit drug you can, because I need the dopamine hit. I need that energy. In the Air Force, it fed me that every single day because I'm getting in a damn flying machine that's going to kill me. So I've got to switch on it. It put rails on me, and what it identified to me is, as much as I hate rails and structure in my soul, uh, that conditioning in that environment for 11 years makes me appreciate how important it is to have intentionality and rails. And you talk to credibility, and there's a saying in the Australian Air Force, and I know Warren Buffett, in the book, we found it for the book. He talks about, how we say credibility, it takes years to earn and only a few seconds to lose. And I think, I used to struggle with that when I was a pilot. Like, I'd go, how do I be credible? Like, what is credibility? Like, what is it? And no one, the system made me credible because I'd go out, I had 3 mission objectives, I'd deliver them. And that's credibility, delivering what you say. And I did that every single day for for 11 years. But no one told me that. No one said to me, hey, Boo, if you do that and deliver, you will be credible. So I was doing all this credible stuff, and I'm still like, what do they mean when they say credibility takes years to earn? And say, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm not consciously being credible. So that credibility, it just comes from showing up, being consistent, and when you say you're going to do something, do it. But equally, as a credible leader, is to set that same expectation with your team to allow them to deliver, because then you're seen as, hey, this leader understands implicitly the challenges with getting this job done, and they've given me the opportunity to bring the achievable piece into it, as opposed to a directive leader that's like, get this done. God, my team's frustrating me. They're hopeless. Come in here, Afterburner, and fix my team. It's like, it's not the team. So to me, the cred dust that you talk to, just under commit and over deliver. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's so funny. I just because I feel that I normally never do this. What I want to do is I'll just share super quickly. I don't want to do this, but I wanted to give the definition of credibility. Right? It's simply here. We'll do this super quick, just for a second. It is the quality in which you're trusted, known, and liked. And the values that I talk about in this show, the values that you are articulating, are the values of the trustworthy stuff. The what you're calling credibility is really the alignment between internal and external integrity. Say what you do what you say. The you takes a while to build, takes a long time to be a fighter pilot, learn all those things. Seconds to lose, you crash, you're done. Right? I mean, it's kind of interesting that way. But if I'm thinking about all the things you're doing, what's nice about being a parent the way you are is that your kids aren't being told what to do. They're being shown how you live your life so they can do it themselves. Tell me about that aspect of you.
Yeah, and I do struggle with the father stuff because of the patience required to coach and bring on my life is the accelerated learning curve, which is not something that humans do. uh, so to me, again, it's but at least to understand that. So I understand, being present, and I'm. Someone told me once that quality time is the minimum amount of time to be fully present. So rather than which is to me is like 30 minutes of highly engaged quality time is better than 4 hours of being on the couch with a hangover. Being present that way. Just to go, interesting that you use circles for credibility. One of the philosophies I have and is iteration, and how the way to be credible is to commit, try, fail, but then learn and then share the learnings. And then credibility isn't about making a commitment and getting there straight away. It's actually making a commitment and then the journey to get there and bringing everyone along. So it's really important for people to understand iteration, which is winning and learning. As Nelson Mandela would say, there's no losing. So part of it is with that circle uh, is starting with intention, uh, comparing it to reality, and being really open and honest. And that's all about your biases, beliefs, and behaviors. We're all biased about being a leader based on other leaders. You'll talk to leaders, go, oh, I want to model myself on a leader I had at this business. And I'm like, well, first of all, that's not you. So you're trying to be someone that you're not, which is not authentic. So you're not credible. Then you get curious and say, why is there a gap between my reality, average leader, and great leader? And then the action is, what's one small thing? And if you have that conversation with people around you, and they know you're open to allow your blind spots to be explored, the byproduct of that is you will become a phenomenal leader.
Nice. So I'm gonna say it now for everyone. I have two questions, and because the second question, I'm going to ask Boo to ask himself a question. This will take a little bit of time to sort of pay attention to. I want first, Boo, if people are interested, they want to reach out to you, they want to learn more. What is the best way for them to go about doing that?
Type Boucousis into Google. There's only me, my dad, and my kids. That's it. And Dad doesn't have much up there. Or I've got two websites, callmeboo.com. So everyone just calls me Boo, callmeboo.com, and afterburner.com, which is obviously the scaled version of this conversation, where I've got a bunch of really cool fighter pilots, all accomplished leaders, all working in business. But yeah, Boucousis into Google, you'll find a whole bunch of hopefully useful stuff.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So based on this conversation, based on what we talked about, is there a question I should have asked you that I didn't ask you yet?
I think the most important question to ask today is, am I intentional and engaged, or am I a passenger passively engaging a digital world and slowly eroding my brain? I think that is the question you need to sit down and ask yourself. If you're feeling agitated, anxious, if you're feeling as a leader that your team's not getting anything done, I would say start with you. And is your engagement with the world two-way, or is it one way? Is it think, act, or react? And I've had that journey myself, just even more recently, when I'm realizing, I've been unintentional with my engagement in digital. Now I'm super intentional, and the digital's working for me. It helped me write this book. I've got another book hopefully coming out at the end of the year. I've managed to harness digital for a force of good rather than as a force of evil. So, and the way that I guess I've been kind of crafting this conversation for everyone to have is to sort of wake up in the morning, and instead of looking at your calendar and saying, what do I need to do today? It's to just stop and ask, what do I want to achieve today? And through that motion, we start to reduce the to-do lists, which is and start to improve the achieve lists. And it's the same question: is am I taking my child to daycare today, or what do I want Joshua to achieve today? And planting that in his head, like, what do you want to achieve today, mate? He's got no idea that that's the frame of the conversation, or he's becoming intentional. But you ask that question in the morning, and then did you achieve that in the afternoon? Now he's forgotten. He's got no idea. But if he has that conversation with me 365 days a year, by the time he's 18, I'm going to condition him and his cognitive model to be very different to everyone else he's competing with in the market.
I love that. That's incredible. Probably one of the best parent advices. I did fun. We can have fun conversations of how we. Mine's now 26. I'm very excited about who he is and his intentional way of life. That is such a great piece of advice. Boo, thank you so much for joining us today. I so enjoyed this conversation and getting to see who you are and how you show up in the world, not just for business, not just for what you're bringing to the world, but also what you're bringing for future generations, the legacy you're leaving not just with business, but also with family. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, Mitch. I don't think you and I ever have a conversation that isn't value additive for me anyway.
You're super kind. Hey, so listen, you're still here. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to spread some cred dust. This is the time to pick the quote, the idea, or the thought that really resonated with you and share it on the social media platform that's most relevant for you. And I look forward to seeing you at the next episode of Leaders Living Their Values. Take care, everyone. Bye now. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you found value in today's episode. Like, subscribe, and share your aha moments on your preferred platform. Remember, credibility starts with clarity and living your values. Learn more at mitchelllevy.com. Until next time.